Well, Razorback fans, I think it's time to ask that age-old question with Razorback basketball slowing down a little bit in the transfer portal. What if this roster doesn't work out for John Calipari? Let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Neighbors. I am also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. This episode is brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox, no console needed. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Tuesday. As you know, it's kind of that time of year where you got some things to look forward to. You got some things to be excited about. And, we'll talk some football because I feel like maybe there are some things too that will change up or switch up in football this spring. But spring's pretty much over. So I want to talk about some of the things that I feel the same about or differently about. Also some Razorback baseball news for something tonight. But I like to mix it up a little bit and talk some basketball because here's the thing is when I do these what if questions, it's amazing how some of you will appreciate them. Some of you will take it for what it is. It's not anything as if me saying that it's not going to work out. Because sometimes it's a good what if question. Sometimes it's a bad what if question as far as positive or negative. But it's just a matter of what is it going to mean? What is it going to look like? What's going to be the future? What's going to be the impact? What's going to be all of those things? And I think it's really fascinating to kind of take those angles of looking at everything, because if you've listened to this podcast, which I know every single one of you have, if you've listened to this podcast, you'll know that everything about this Razorback roster and all that I'm a fan of. We know that we're going to be waiting on the news of Karter Knox, whether or not he's going to be returning for the Razorbacks. We got to wait on that. We got to wait on some other things too. To see when it all completes itself, because as of right now, at least, it doesn't look like it's fully completed. But it does look like at least we have an idea of what the roster is going to look like. And I think it's really important to kind of look at all angles. That's why I'm wearing my DJ Wagner jersey, by the way. For those of you wondering, I'm not wearing it just because I look cool. I'm actually wearing it to show the support for old DJ. So looking at it from where it stands right now, with the Razorback players that are currently on the roster, and let's just look at the best case scenario, or at least one of the cases that make it feel like it's going to be all good and all grand and wonderful. You're going to have Karter Knox on this team. I think he returns. And then you're going to have the two new transfers there. You're going to have the new freshmen coming in. You're going to have the retention from the players last year. You have a pretty good basic idea of what the roster looks like. And on paper, if that was to be the roster, and that's not even with adding any more players that they may need to add or anything like that, I believe that is a pretty solid roster. Is it a bona fide number one team in the country roster? No, I'm not going to go that far. Is it a roster that is good enough to get you to the Final Four? Yeah, I think it's capable of that. I think it's to that point. But at minimum, it's going to be a roster that's going to get you into the NCAA tournament, and it's going to be very, very quality enough to get you to the second weekend. I know matchups and everything are about that, but it's always about getting to the tournament, rolling the dice, and see what happens. That's how I truly feel about it. But as we know, in college basketball, especially, a roster on paper does not always translate. I know many of you, but me especially famously looked at from Eric Musselman's last year as the head coach of Arkansas. I remember looking at that roster he assembled, and I had never been more ecstatic. I was so pumped up about that roster he put together. I thought it was going to be a championship caliber roster, especially who they had coming back and some of the pieces they added. And I wasn't the only one. I mean, you had people like the Field of 68 and John Fanta and everybody picking Arkansas to win the national championship. So it wasn't based off nothing. It wasn't just the trendy thing to do. On paper, there was a lot of reasons to believe that roster was going to be good enough to win a championship. And especially when he won that preseason game against Purdue, it felt like it was all going to work out. But it didn't, as we all know. Point is that sometimes Just because it looks like it, just because it feels like it, doesn't mean it's going to be that way. Now, I don't believe that it's going to be that bad for Arkansas and John Calipari. I don't think it'll ever get to that point. But there is that chance. There is that chance. And what if this roster didn't work out the way it's supposed to? Well, here's how I view it. Here's would be the scenario of which this roster does not work out. One, you'd have Karter Knox moving on to the NBA. That would be the biggest, most unfortunate thing to happen for this Razorback team. Not to say that Karter Knox is the best player in the country next year, but to me, he is the guy you have to do everything you can to get him back because of his upside, because of the way he plays, his personality, the talent level that he has. I mean, he is a guy that can take you from being a good team to a great team with an offseason development and everything like that. I truly believe it. He can shoot the threes. He's athletic. He can play really good defense. I mean, if you think about the true freshmen on the team last year, Billy Richmond was really good. Boogie Flan was good from what we got to see, but he was hurt for most of the year. But Karter Knox was really a consistent guy when it came to being in the starting lineup. A lot of guys moved in and out of the lineup. He did not. He was one of the guys that was usually in there. And so as a true freshman, you know what type of upside that he has. So if it wasn't going to work out, it has to kind of start there with Karter Knox not being on this roster. The next thing would have to be that these transfers that are coming in, the big men, you got Nick Pringle, of course, and then you also have Meleek Ewan, who both are well-regarded defensive players, especially guys that can just walk in. The way that does not work out is if they are shades of themselves of what they were in their previous years. They step into this role. They don't fit in. They don't know what their role is. They maybe try to be something that they're not because this is getting close to the end of their college basketball career. They're trying to get to that next level of getting to the NBA. All of these things. And when you get thrown into a system into that final year, it may take some adjusting. It may take some time. And especially being at that high level, because I know that Nick Pringle, at least, he's played with some good teams, especially when he was there at Alabama. But playing for Cal, playing with other players that are high caliber, it's a little bit different than the situation he was in at Bama, but especially in the situation he was at South Carolina. And Meleek Ewan's kind of the same thing. Whatever roster ends up being assembled, this one that Arkansas is going to have is going to be the most talented roster that Meleek Ewan has ever played around. So are they going to be able to fit in with all the different personalities, the different egos, the different things like that? It would mean with this roster is not going to work out. They did not fit in. They did not adjust to that role very well. And whether it's mentally or whether it's with their actual play, whatever it could be, that could end up causing some problems and end up causing some issues for Arkansas in the long run. It would also more than likely mean that the true freshmen that you have coming in, with Malik Thomas as well as Darius Acuff, those are freshmen that just struggled. The freshmen that were not ready to walk right in and be those guys. It was really stupid to see On3 put out their latest in their final rankings for this high school class, and they dropped both Malik Thomas and Darius Acuff out of 5 stardom. They no longer have 5 stars. Dropped them into the 20s. Zero reason why, zero excuse why, other than the fact that this just fuels the fire that, once again, recruiting outlets and everybody, if you end up signing with Arkansas, if you end up going to Arkansas, then, you must not be very good. It's the stupidest, dumbest thing ever. Not that it matters. I just want to get off my chest. But, hey, what if they're right? And what if it doesn't work out? Well, that would mean that the roster would not be working out according to plan, because not to say that those guys must step right in and have to be the greatest freshmen to ever play. They have to be able to be solid. That's why that they were 5-star caliber athletes. That's why they're one-and-done caliber players. That's why they're coming to Arkansas and to play for Calipari, is because they're ready. They're ready to be those guys and then that type of player. I've heard a lot from last year's team when they was the freshmen that some of those guys, and at least that class was not the most talented, most NBA-ready class that's ever existed. I mean, you had Cooper Flagg, but a lot of the other ones were pretty big unknowns and maybe some projects. This particular class, at least according to all the sauces, is a really good one, and one that is going to have a lot of high-quality players. And these are 2 guys, don't tell On3 this, but these are 2 guys that can be those types of players of making it to where they're freshmen, they're energized, they're raw, but they're fun. They have a swagger to them. But there's that issue of like, what if it doesn't work out? And then the final one, of course, is the retention and those players that are coming back. I know Karter, Knox, we already talked a little bit about him, but we know that Billy Richmond, Trevin Brazil, and DJ Wagner are coming back. What this roster would look like if it didn't work out, those three guys don't improve. They just don't improve. They stay the same, which wouldn't be the end of the world. Like if DJ Wagner was the same player next year as he was this past year, that's not like a bad thing. It just means that they can't get to that next step. They can't do those next things. Trevin Brazil, still love the guy and still think he's phenomenal. But with what maybe some inconsistencies happen, like what at the start of the year with these new big men that are coming in, what if there's some awkwardness there? And Billy Richmond, he's got so much potential and upside, but there's still not just like one thing that he does extraordinarily well, where it's like, oh man, he's known for this. Because there's some times where he could look like an incredible player, and other times he could just look lost. I know a lot of it has to do with the freshman and expecting growth, but there has to be some development and some getting better from that. But I laid all that out and pretty generically and kind of went straight to the point for each of the caliber players. I know I left some players off, but I'm just talking about the guys that I feel like are going to contribute right away and helping out this team. I threw it all out there and I went step by step, and you're probably like, wow, if all those things happen, how awful would that be? Well, let me tell you something. Me going through all of that, me saying all of that about each one of those players and those group of players and all of that, to me shows just how unlikely it's going to be that this roster does not work out. I mean, you would have to have the stars align in all the worst and possible directions for this roster to not at least be solid, to not at least be a tournament caliber roster, to not be a roster that can do some damage in the SEC, especially when I believe, as good as the SEC may be next year, and they're going to be good, it's still going to be not as good as it was this past year. But that's the point I was trying to make in all of this. What if the roster doesn't work out? Well, the likeliest of scenarios is that not only is it going to work out, but it's going to work out magically. And this team is going to have some talent, and this team is going to be developing. And I am really excited about it. And I can't wait to see if they add any more. Maybe somebody comes back that you don't even expect. But either way, I'm excited about basketball. I'm excited to see DJ Wagner, 3J Wagner coming back. It's going to be an absolutely outstanding season. And now everybody's freaking out because Adu Thero's posting Instagram stories about his Razorback jerseys with no caption. So everyone's like, oh, is he coming back? Oh, watch out. Oh, man. Why not? Why not for content's sake? But we'll talk a little bit about the football side of things here in a second. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, Razorback fans, there's nothing like an NBA playoff game, my college baseball game, all of these great atmospheres that you always get a chance to check out each and every week. And that's what Game Time can help you with, and you can be a part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket buying. Game Time makes it fast and easy to pick up all these playoff tickets that are going on in the NBA, especially when the sky-high demand is there. Prices on the app usually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60% off. That's right, 60% off buying tickets for last-minute sports, for concerts, comedies, everything. I've actually used the app, and I've done it myself for a Razorback baseball game. Waited till the close to the first pitch. I got a disgustingly amazing deal, and that's one of the many perks that they have. They also have the all-in pricing, which means no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I'm talking football again. It is so funny to me. I know I mentioned this yesterday, and it's always something different, and things change, storylines change, headlines change, all of that. But it is just still so fascinating to me how many Razorback fans just are out on football. And it's sad. It kind of sucks, dude. Like, I really haven't seen anything like this. I know it's spring. Trust me, I know it's spring. And people will get excited once fall comes around. But I think with transfer portal stuff for basketball, I think with, having Sam Pittman retained and not really any high-level energy for a player coming in, and the only player that really was coming in that had some juice to it is left after spring practice. So, it'll get there. It'll get exciting. But, right now, just nobody really seems to be caring all that much. But I will say that there's been some things that have had happen. Not only did you have spring practice, and forget about the transfers out and everything, but, you had a wide receiver come in, and, he's a guy that was at Florida for a little bit. And so, he's not a big wide receiver. He doesn't really have many stats. How good is he going to be? Don't really know, but they're getting close to pretty much having the entire roster set when it comes to the amount of scholarships and everything like that. So that being said, I'm looking at everything. I'm looking at everything of the spring and what I went into the spring feeling and how I feel exiting the spring. And I ask myself this every single year. Every year that I do this, I ask, okay, how did I feel when I went into it, and how do I feel leaving out of it? Do I feel differently? Better, worse, the same? Am I more excited, less excited, whatever it is? And I can tell you, I feel no different. I feel no different. I wasn't exactly thrilled and energized for the spring practices. Maybe part of the reason why I feel this way is because we didn't get a spring game where I could even watch, or anybody could actually watch all what was going on. That could be a huge factor. But I don't feel any differently. That can also be viewed as not such a bad thing, because it's not like I looked at this team and the roster back, oh gosh, this is even worse than I thought. Like, I'm not looking at it that way. I'm more taking the approach of not trying to juice myself up, not trying to get everybody excited for no reason, but also not trying to have this narrative of downplaying the team when there's no reason to. I've been accused of this at times of being negative, which is just so funny to me, because I had the reputation so long of being the fanboy, over the top, extra positive guy. And I don't know when I lost that. Maybe it's just when, I'm actually upfront and honest, which I always am about the way I feel. I don't have any narratives. I don't come out here and hype up something for the sake of hyping it up. I just say how I feel. And so I don't have a narrative. Like, did I feel like Sam Pittman should have returned this next season? No, I made that very clear even before the season started, that I was like, he's got to go 7-5 if he wants to keep his job. Now he went 6-6, 7-6 with the bowl victory. But I don't count those. I mean, there's no point in it. But like, I felt that way, and I still feel like it would be a whole different animal and a whole different thing if Sam Pittman's not here. But he's here. He's the coach, so I'm going to be rooting for him to do well. I'm going to be rooting for him to have a big year. But going into it, it's just, how do you really approach it and say, man, I feel good about this. I feel good about this position. I feel this good about everything. It's hard, but I'm also not walking in here being like, well, since I wanted Sam Pittman not to be here next season, I'm going to trash this team. I'm going to make sure I talk about all the terrible things that they are, how awful, how I'm not, even when a positive thing happens or a positive play happens, or if a player looks good, I'm not going to admit it. I'm only going to focus on the bad, because there is a lot of that. There is a lot of that in sports media on that scale, but I just don't do that. I try to call everything as it is. It's kind of like politics a little bit, like, just because someone's in the office that maybe I didn't vote for doesn't mean I'm not rooting for him to do well. Football coach is kind of the same thing. If I felt like he doesn't need to be the coach, or I felt like they should have moved on, but they didn't, and he's back, okay, I'm still going to root for him. I'm not going to take that approach. So that's not something that I want to do during spring. And even in the fall, which the schedule's tough, I'm not feeling great about this team and their chances of having a great year, just being honest. I don't think any of you are either. But I am going to give it a shot. I am going to give it a chance. And I would love nothing more to be proven wrong. I would love nothing more than to see this team perform really well and be able to have a situation where they, have an upset. Maybe they beat Notre Dame, something like that. I'm all for that. But I'd be lying to you and to all of you if I told you that this spring has me feeling some type of way. Because it doesn't. I'm in wait and see mode, man. I'm in wait and see mode. All these players, and are they better? Well, people should just assume because you got another year. I'm not going to assume anything. If one group's better, the other group's better. Or if one group's worse and the other group's worse, I'm not assuming nothing. I'm just rolling with it, dude. I'm rolling with it. I'm hopeful. I'm feeling that there could be some potential there. But at the end of the day, it's springtime, coming to an end for football in the Razorback athletic department. SEC Media Days will be kind of the next big thing. But until the season get going, it's really hard to understand and really hard to feel like this team's going to be anything spectacular. But boy, oh boy, when I love to be wrong. We'll talk some news with the Razorback baseball team and some of the narrative that people are pushing around this. Do that in a second. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, fans. We know the NBA playoffs are here. We know Razorback baseball is going on. We know all the sports are going on. And FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Because right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 bonus bets if your bet wins. FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking your favorite team or diving into the player props. They have it all, from three-pointers to steals to assists. FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into the same game parlay for a chance to win big. So don't miss out. Head over to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 bonus bet today. All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Razorback baseball, we talked about and how they lost that series, and they got a big one. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's this team called Texas that's coming to town, and they just happen to be the number one team in the country, and they are 19-2 in conference play, and they're coming to Fayetteville this Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So, yeah, let's get excited for that one. Should be a lot of fun, and it's always fun when Arkansas plays Texas, for sure. But still, this team's kind of reeling a little bit. They're not feeling great, but there was some news that came out because they were going to go to Missouri State, play up in Springfield for a Tuesday night game. That's it. And it was going to be at 6 p.m., and we're going to see where they went. Well, they announced this yesterday that they have canceled the game. They were going to play at the St. Louis Cardinals AA affiliate park where Springfield Cardinals play, and it was canceled due to forecasted thunderstorms. So the game will not be made up. Tickets to Tuesday's game will be treated as a rain voucher and honored at any 4 remaining Missouri State home games this season. So if you bought tickets to this, Razorback fans, you don't get a refund. But hey, you can go to another Missouri State game because I'm sure you'd all want to do that. Sheesh. But either way, they're going to be taking on and focusing now on Texas as they come to town, which on ESPN2 Thursday night at 6 p.m. is when the first game is going to be. So there's that. Game canceled. Everybody was trying to come up with this narrative that Arkansas canceled this game. And you know what? I don't know how true some of that stuff is. I don't know if Arkansas and Dave Van Horn were like, man, we don't want to play this game. Let's find a reason to get out of it. I don't know how much that goes on. But I'm also not upset that they canceled this game. And it has nothing to do with ducking anybody. It just has to do with timing. Like, what's the most important thing for this team? This team needs to get focused in, man. They need to get focused in. They need to get recharged. They need to get refreshed. They were flying high for the majority of this season. In the past 3 weeks, they have gotten hit in the face. And now it's time for them to try to put things together and try to figure it out and try to move forward and try to get it going. That's what there needs to be having their focus, and especially with number one Texas coming to town. I'm hoping and praying that this is exactly what Arkansas needs. Their last impression that they need to be feeling is that loss that they had to Florida, and they had the extra time to get ready because it's a Thursday night game, so it's an earlier series game. Take the time, get rested up, get mentally recharged, and get ready to take on an opportunity to take on the number one team in the country and the Texas Longhorns for the first time since they've joined the SEC. Get that. Go get it. I'm not going to sit here and say that because Arkansas is getting rested up and not playing this game tonight, that they're going to beat Texas because of that. No, but I don't think it's going to hurt. I don't think playing the game against Missouri State was going to make you have a better chance of beating Texas or anything like that. I just think this is the right move. I think it comes at the right time, whether it's because of thunderstorms or not. I do not care. I am all good with this Razorback team trying to get themselves back on track. And that's fine by me. Getting ready for Texas. One more time, Horns. Appreciate each and every one of you listening in and watching into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Neighbors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. Keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you then.